happening? This is the Blue Review. Okay, let's check out what people have to say. We're going to get into the pen. We're going to get into Julio Urias. We're going to get into Cody Bellinger. But I want to read what you guys have to say. All right, what's going on, people? Thank you very much for being on the Blue Review. Now everything is up. My name is Greg Bergman. Alongside of me is Matthew Moreno from Dodger Blue, M Moreno 1015 on Twitter, and I'm at Bergman Greg on Twitter and on Instagram. Well, the Dodgers lost. They lost to the Baltimore Orioles, who is the second worst team in all of baseball behind the Tigers. And I said before this series started that they have to sweep this team because I think that home field advantage throughout the playoffs and into the World Series is important, and you're just right behind the Yankees, Astros, and the Braves are catching right up to you. Do you agree?
I know you feel very strongly about that.
I do feel very strongly about that.
I think, obviously, if you can cut it any which way, the preference is to have home field advantage through the World Series. Is it an end-all, be-all? I don't think so. I know the Dodgers have been great at home this season. On the road, they're not as good, whether pitching, hitting, whatever the case, it's been a little bit of everything. That being said, they eliminated the Braves in the DS on the road last year. They won Game 7 against the Brewers on the road last year. The last 2 years, they've lost the World Series at home both times.
Right.
So to me, I think sorry, not to cut you.
No, you're fine.
They have injury concerns right now is what I would focus on, as opposed to winning games and making sure you kind of try to chase that best record.
All right, well, you're talking about the injury concerns then. I understand Max Muncy was injured, Rich Hill injured, Alex Verdugo is injured. You don't really know what's going on with Joe Kelly.
Yeah.
I think there are some injury concerns, but you get Max Muncy back in the next couple days. Mm-hmm. Rich Hill is starting tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Alex Verdugo is done, and while he was good, he was kind of falling off before he got injured anyway. Who is the biggest injury concern then? Because I don't really see a ton of injuries that I'm worried about.
So for me, I think whatever's going on with Justin Turner's ankle, I know Dave Roberts.
Yeah, okay, Justin Turner, sure.
Dave Roberts said today that he could have played through it if it was not that it's not a meaningful game, but if the game meant a lot more to the Dodgers, he could have played. So that's something to keep an eye on. With Rich Hill, I know he's coming back, but it's still a scary injury that he's returning from.
Yeah.
And considering that it looks like they've aligned everything for him to be their fourth starter in the postseason, there's a lot riding on him pitching well and being okay.
Yeah, I mean, he's scheduled. I would assume he would be scheduled in as the fourth starter when you need him, no matter what. So, yeah, having Rich Hill being Rich Hill again, I was saying just on Sedano's show just a few minutes ago in the early Blue Review that the only thing that I really want to see from him is that he's hitting his locations. He's hitting it from different angles. The curveball is hitting, on the sides of the plates, and he's mixing in his fastball correctly. Is there something else that you want to see from him?
No, I mean, I think that
takes away the fourth spot.
I think that's pretty much. I mean, obviously, you don't want to see him go out and give up 5 runs each
right.
time out. But I think Rich, he's got a great feel for the ball.
Yep.
He's always been able to kind of spin his curveballs every which way from different arm angles and all that. So I don't know how much he'll really drop down and kind of get too exotic with some of his pitching is for tomorrow night.
Yeah,
you might see that maybe the second or third time out. But I know the plan is to give him 4 starts this month. So. We'll see.
Yeah, hopefully that's it. And then I got Duran Sports. What's up, Beto? Beto's watching right now. He says Fancy Studios, which we are in Studio B right now. This was the best angle that I could get it at because Sedano is actually doing his show in the studio where I normally do this. And then he says Sweet Cap Sangra Azul, which is Bleed Blue, which with this hat, which is badass, by the way. And you can get any of these things at Bleed Los. Bleed Los is on. You can get them on Instagram and on Twitter. I got my Walker Bueller's Day On shirt going in. Sorry to lift it up like that. It's got to get it into the camera. So, but this is all from Bleed Los. Bleed Los does a great job. And if you put in Blue Review in when you log out, you can get 15% off your entire purchase. The entire purchase at Bleed Los, you'll get 15% off, and you can get this Los Angeles Sangra Azul shirt. I have a shirt and a hat. This is the hat, which I love, by the way, and I wear all the time. So please go to Bleed Los and get all that stuff, because this stuff is comfortable, and playoffs are coming, and you want to be wearing all this stuff when it actually happens. All right, so this is all about, the fans and what they want to say. So I'm going to answer some of the questions from the Instagram and from Periscope and from everywhere else. Frank Talk LA says, priorities: 1, get healthy; 2, figure out the best 25; 3, avoid injuries; 4, home field. So, do you agree with those? Those are pretty obvious, Frank. I don't know.
I think he's got the right order, though.
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah, get healthy and figure out the best 25, which I think we have a pretty good sense of who that 25 is going to be, and we'll go through all those 25 in just a little bit. Shane K. Lee, this bullpen is going to cost us. See, I think this is a great topic in itself. I like this team and usually optimistic, but man, so scary, especially Yimi. And I think that's an important part that we need to get through right off the bat. Yimi Garcia. Not on the postseason roster.
He will not.
He will not be there. So if you're scared about Yimi Garcia, don't worry. He's not going to make the roster. So what is it? I don't really feel too scared about the bullpen. I feel like they're going to have enough guys that are going to be moving around, starting pitchers that are going to be in the bullpen, and the back end is kind of, strong except for a little bit with Kenley. What is it about? Are you worried about this bullpen? And if so, what is it that you're actually worried about?
I think it's fair to have some level of concern for it. Like you said, a lot of it probably kind of stems with Kenley. For me personally, I don't know. I'd throw Joe Kelly into that as well, just because you don't really know what's going on with whatever lower body injury, I believe is how, or lower half injury is how Dave Roberts described it. So really vague. And tonight he didn't. Yeah, he wasn't as sharpest. But if his mechanics are sound, and we saw that,
right,
he can be an elite reliever. I'm more encouraged now than I was in the past, because they've already kind of gotten to experimenting a little bit with Kenley, where he's still the closer, but they're also not afraid to go to Joe Kelly, to go to Pedro Baez, use Kenley in the 8th, or whatever the case may be. So the bullpen's always a concern, and I know Dodger fans feel like they're the only team that has a shaky bullpen, but if you look across baseball, every team more or less is dealing with that.
Right. I think one of the best teams in baseball is what most people are worried about is the Yankees. Yankees have one of the best bullpens in all of baseball. There's only, I think the Dodgers, last I looked, and I may be off, but the last I looked, the Dodgers were like 3rd in baseball with their bullpen.
Definitely deceiving.
Right. So, it's just, you see losses and you see guys like Yimi Garcia get hit, and you're like, oh my God, all right, this bullpen sucks. But I think the biggest we were talking about is Kenley Jansen. Kenley Jansen is worrisome, and is never an easy inning for him. He goes right through, and it's never like a 1-2-3 with 2 strikeouts. There's always a walk where the guy ends up getting to third base, or or he gives up a couple hits, and he's got runners on 2nd and 3rd with 1 out, and he has to get himself out of it. It's never easy. And I don't know, is there something that you're seeing from him that needs to be fixed, or because you're at the ballpark all the time, right?
Yeah. I think it's with his mechanics,
right?
In terms of fine tuning and all that, so I couldn't necessarily pinpoint and say, well,
he's
always always kind of leaking out, or whatever the case is. One thing that I think maybe we can bank on, and we saw it a little bit twice this season with the Red Sox and the Yankees series, is in the big moments, at least Kenley's, I think, adrenaline kind of kicks up, and the intensity for him. And for better or worse, it can kind of help carry him and push him through that appearance. In the postseason, obviously, everything's intensified and heightened. So you might see his velocity will at least maybe be back up at where it is, where you're expecting it to be.
Right.
The downside will be is the trade-off is the movement, then sacrifice. And if that's the case, then it won't matter. But you might get something there.
Right. I think that's important to notice, is that, Kenley Jansen, when he is throwing 94 to 96, the movement doesn't move.
Right.
And a 94-mile-per-hour fastball down the middle is just money for guys. They're just it's squared up, boom, gone. It's just blasted away. But when he actually has the cutter, when it's moving, it doesn't move unless it's around 92 miles an hour.
Right.
And that's when he's starting to hit his outside corners, and that's when it's important. But from what I've been seeing, and maybe you saw something different. The last time I saw him was it was a couple games ago, maybe last week, and he was he was facing the bottom of the lineup. It was last week. I don't remember who they were playing because all these games blend together at this point. But he was outside of the plate, and it was all 7, 8, 9 hitters, and he just couldn't find the strike zone. And that's important because he's not actually hitting it on guys that don't matter. Like the bottom of the lineup is where he's supposed to be able to attack, and he can't find the strike zone. That shows me that he's not in the right mindset. Maybe you're right, and that when he gets to the postseason, then he becomes a different guy because he becomes heightened. He hasn't been the best in the postseason, especially in the World Series. So I don't know who. Let's say Kenley Jansen comes in the 7th inning. Let's just say, for argument's sake, he comes in the 7th inning. Who do you want to see going into the 9th inning if they have a 1-run lead?
Ooh,
it's a tough question.
Yeah, that's
right?
a tough question.
Yeah.
I think maybe Joe Kelly. Assuming he's right, assuming he gets right and shakes off whatever injury he might be dealing with. I know Pedro Baez has had his moments where he's really pitched well this season. The difference for me with Kelly, is he's been there in the big moment. We just saw it last year, and with the Cardinals, obviously. So he's been there for kind of those big moments. I think a little more than Baez has. So that would kind of, for me, maybe give him the nod.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you wouldn't want to see Julio Urias for a couple innings or.
I'm definitely
Casey
open
Sadler.
to that. I'm definitely Sadler. I don't know if he'll
make it.
Julio definitely would be open to it. I just don't know if the Dodgers would throw him into kind of an 8th inning, 9th inning situation. They say they trust him and that they would put him in leverage, but I don't know. We haven't seen him in the 8th or 9th inning yet.
Right. I know somebody was just asking about it, and I missed it just a little bit ago who it was, and I'm sorry for not getting your name on here. But they were asking about Caleb Ferguson, and Caleb Ferguson has been pitching well of late. He did give up a 3-run home run today to Jonathan Villar, which was the most home runs now given up in all of Major League Baseball. Right. Not Caleb Ferguson, just Major League Baseball has given up the most home runs in one season, and it's only September 11th. We still have like 20 more days.
And they shattered the record last season.
Right. Shattered. So now they're shattering it again. Yes, it's just insane what's actually happening. But Caleb Ferguson is one of those guys that people are thinking, are we going to see him? He's a lefty. You only have really Adam Kolarek that's going to be coming out of the pen. That's going to be another lefty. Does Caleb Ferguson make this roster? And if he does, are you okay with it?
I think so, especially if he keeps trending in this direction. I think what could impact it is how they ultimately decide to go with Dustin May and Tony Gonsolin and how all that kind of shakes out. It could cut into, obviously, a bullpen spot and Stripling as well.
Right.
So that Ferguson could end up being squeezed out just by sheer numbers if they decide to go in a different direction. And also, the Dodgers have shown they're not afraid to play the matchups. Maybe Ferguson absolutely deserves to be on the postseason roster by the time it gets there. But if they're facing a team that has a bunch of right-handed hitters, they might go with Gonsolin and Stripling and May or some combination.
Right.
And then switch it up after that.
I think that's an important thing to depend. They do go by matchups. What these Dodgers team, and Andrew Friedman does a hell of a job at doing this, is putting the guys in the right positions to succeed. And that's why, which I know people get upset when Jock Peterson was going crazy. They're like, why isn't he playing against lefties? Because he can't hit them. Right. And the Dodgers make sure that they only put him in situations that he can succeed. Just like A.J. Pollock. He is now your guy that is going to be going up against righties or lefties, because he just destroys lefties. And he's been on fire recently, which is really nice to see. So I think that's a great thing about this bullpen. Edward Vento says, was trying to figure out my 25, and I was considering 4 relievers for the last spot. And he was intrigued to see where they go. What would you say? I can get it up if you want here, but do you have an idea of what your 12 pitchers are going to look like for the postseason?
A little bit. The problem is, I guess we can assume that Rich Hill will be your 4th starter.
Yeah, let's assume that he's there.
So that gives you no particular order: Buehler, Kershaw, Ryu, Hill. That's 4. Kenley Jansen's 5. Joe Kelly 6. Pedro Baez. Kolarek
would be on there.
Now we're up to 8.
Urias would be on there.
That's 9.
Would you go Stripling, Maeda?
Maeda's definitely on. So that's 10.
And then you have to start getting into guys. Did you say Joe Kelly already?
I believe so.
Okay, but then there's guys like Dustin May,
Right.
Tony Gonsolin, and we're saying no to Casey Sadler, and then Caleb Ferguson. It just depends. Between the two of them, if you have to choose, they're both righties, Dustin May and Tony Gonsolin. May has some crazy movement in his fastball, which is nice to see. But Gonsolin has been the better pitcher from in my perspective. Who do you like better?
So for me, that question will boil down as to what role they're going to need him to fill. I know Dustin May, he threw 2 scoreless out of the bullpen, or he pitched well out of the bullpen today.
Right. Yes, he did.
But before that, and it's a small sample size, I understand that, he hadn't really shown to be too comfortable with the role as a relief pitcher.
Right.
Whereas Gonsolin he picked it for whatever reason, he picked it up right off the bat. His first time pitching out of the bullpen was a 4-inning save at Coors Field.
Right. Which is first 3 innings were perfect.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you need a reliever, then I think I go Gonsolin, which might buck the trend because May's stuff is a little bit more electric, and obviously in October that's kind of what you look for. If you need a starter, I think I would go May
over Gonsolin. Okay, I mean, I just really like what I've seen from Tony Gonsolin, and whether it's been out of the bullpen, whether it's been as a starter, I think he's just been the better pitcher of the two. Dustin May has shown some good moments, but he tends to give up a lot of home runs, which was weird because in AAA that was his thing. Like he didn't give up a lot of home runs. So now to see him doing that here, it shows that he's not totally ready to me. And whereas Gonsolin has been to me just seems like the better pitcher. So which they go with, I mean, I trust Andrew Friedman. Basically.
I don't know if there's a wrong answer
right.
between the two. So, I mean, it could be a worse situation for the Dodgers. You have to decide between those guys.
Yeah, right. So, yeah, Janet's day off. Do we have a better bullpen than the Braves? The Braves made a bunch of moves and actually got a bunch of guys from, like, Shane Green. And I think they brought in 3 different relievers at the trade deadline, 1, 2, or 3.
Around there.
Yeah, somewhere around there. And made moves, whereas the Dodgers didn't really make, besides Adam Kolarek,
right.
They didn't really make any moves. Do you think that this team has a better record, has a better bullpen than the Braves?
I mean, I suppose on paper you'd have to give the edge to the Braves, possibly.
Right.
That being said, their trades at the deadline backfired, especially Shane Green, up until the Dodgers. They played the Dodgers that weekend. It wasn't until kind of those 3 games where they got back on track. Once I don't know. I mean, like I said, bullpens are so volatile that it's hard to say. Yes, they definitely have hands down a better bullpen than such and such team.
Right. No, it is very difficult to say that. But I think I just trust this team. I don't know why. I just think everything that I've seen from this team, I think that this is the year. They have an idea. They've been through it twice already. They've been the best team in baseball for the entire year, where teams are just starting to catch up to them now.
Right.
But they do all the little things correctly. When everybody's healthy, which I assume they'll all be pretty much healthy going into the postseason, they are one of the best teams in baseball, one of the best teams in the National League with runners in scoring position and 2 outs. They're one of the best teams in baseball with runners in scoring position and 2 outs and 2 strikes. They take pitchers deep into counts. They get them deep into their pitch counts, especially in the first inning. They do so many of the little things, and they try and get to your bullpen, which is usually pretty volatile. They just have a more workmanlike attitude than they have the last couple of years, and they got rid of guys like Puig that
right.
were a little bit problems in the clubhouse. So I don't know. This team just seems so much different to me.
I think so, and I don't even think you can really compare. I know that it's natural to kind of compare them to last year.
Right.
But last year, obviously, you had Turner start off on the injured list because of his
right.
wrist. Like, everything was kind of just thrown off from the beginning. And it's funny, one of our staff writers actually wrote recently kind of comparing the 2017 team to this year's team. And I've really gone back and forth on which one I think is quote-unquote better. I think I was leaning towards 17 at some point. I think this team, though, this year's team and roster just has so much talent that it's top to bottom, lineup, pitching staff, it's kind of overwhelming.
Yeah, it really is. And I think it's easy to go to 17 because they blew away from everybody
right.
in 17 and they blew away from everybody this year. But this team, it seems they're more like last year, but with that one extra element of being able to hit with runners in scoring position. Because that's what happened in the World Series, right? They just couldn't get a hit, and that's what they did all year.
Yeah.
They just couldn't hit when it mattered the most, and I think that's kind of what the biggest thing is here. All right, Edward Vento, I have Gonsolin as a lock to make it. He's been awesome. I think we kind of talked about that a little bit, but yeah.
That's fair. I mean, it would not shock me at all.
No. Charlie81 on Instagram says, is the biggest threat for the Dodgers are the Braves? And let's just do National League.
National League?
Yeah.
Probably. The Nationals, I know, have a kind of a vaunted rotation when it's healthy, but I would counter with the Dodgers have had their share of success against Scherzer and Strasburg,
yep.
especially in the postseason. I mean, it might take 4 or 5 innings, but eventually, like you were just talking about, they wear him down,
yep.
and they end up getting the one big home run or the one big hit, and they string together multiple hits. So I guess because of maybe sheer talent overall, you could say the Braves are.
Right.
Would it be too cliche to say the Dodgers are their own worst their biggest challenge or opponent?
No, I don't think it is at all. I think you're right. So they should, with the team that they have and everything else, I think that the best way for them, they should be able to move right through and into the World Series. It may not be easy every time. They're going to lose a couple games here and there, but when it comes to the Atlanta Braves pitching staff, like they got the Max Fried and the Soroka, Matt. Was it Soroka?
Yeah.
So whatever the hell his name is, I forget names. I only think about the Dodgers. But when you think about them, like they're younger. They're not. They're just. I don't feel like they're fully ready to be in that moment. Or last year you saw the same thing. Like Fulton Nevich was their best pitcher, and he got beat up by the Dodgers because they just weren't ready for what they can do. So I think that's kind of going to be the same deal as what happened here.
It's fair to say. Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me.
So who in the East, in the AL, are you most worried about, and who would you rather see of the two? Because really, it's a 2-horse race there, right?
Right.
Astros and Yankees.
I've been of the opinion, even well before the Dodgers and Yankees played, that it was going to be the Astros out of the American League. I thought I didn't trust it. Maybe it might be some recency bias where I didn't trust the Yankees to kind of get over the hump. Mm-hmm. I still think the Astros probably make it out of the American League. I don't know if the Yankees, similar to the Braves, are they really ready to kind of take that next step forward?
Right.
I don't know who I would rather face. They're both talented teams.
Dominant, yeah.
The Astros, as much as highly as I think of them, they also have right-handed starters, which should play right into the hands of the Dodgers and their left-handed hitters.
Right. Which makes sense. I just think the Yankees, their pitching staff, their starting pitching staff, I don't think is very strong.
Right.
I don't think, and they have a ton of injuries. I don't think they can get past the Astros. I think you're right. When it comes to the Astros, though, they know how to hit Verlander. I mean, they should have beat Verlander twice in the World Series 2 years ago. They won one, and the other one, Kenley Jansen blew in the top of the ninth, but we're not going backwards in time. And Zach Greinke, they just destroy Greinke.
Right.
They own Greinke.
Right.
That's just a normal thing, and that's your third starter. Garrett Cole is a very good pitcher. I'm not the biggest on Cole. Now that's really small on Facebook for me. If you would be able to read that from Jermaine Armenta, I can't. I don't want to lean in front of you.
Sure. How about the 7-time?
You can read it out.
How about the 7-time NL West division winners? They really need to improve on the road if they want to be feared in the postseason. Teams are already scared to walk into Dodge Stadium to play our boys, but they don't seem to shake when we go visit them.
No, that's
fair.
And then our bullpen. So he's just talking about the actual team itself.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So just the three of us on Instagram says our bullpen is our biggest threat, especially the closer. Yeah. I mean, we talked about it a little bit, but I think with these, people come in and out. So, Kenley Jansen is everybody's worst nightmare at this point. I think nobody is. Are you ever feeling like, oh, I feel good when he's coming in?
If there's a comfortable lead, I think what it's
like 7 runs.
What it's kind of boiled down to is you need to have a cushion of, I guess probably 3 runs to feel quote unquote comfortable. Whereas, if he walks someone, and in fairness to Kenley, he has been hurt at times and semi-frequently by a lot of soft contact.
Right.
And, of course, in the postseason, if it's soft contact and it beats you, it still beats you. So, it's a double-edged sword there.
Yeah. I think that's what we've been seeing the most. And I try and bring that up, but at the same time, it's tough because that soft contact is landing. And that's because, whether that's because they're just getting lucky and finding open spots, or if the Dodgers are in the wrong positions for depending on who they are, knowing that he's going to give up soft contact. I think they're so used to them giving up the long ball that guys are staying further back, and then so when they get this little soft contact that lands in between the shortstop and the left field, there you're like, oh man, you should have been able to get there, but you're staying so far back because you don't want anything over your head.
Right.
So it's just one of those tough situations.
I think what I would be more concerned with, and you touched on it earlier, we couldn't remember the game, was Kenley nibbling at the corners and not hitting the corners. And if he's walking guys, then that's going to be a problem. I mean, soft contact, hard contact won't matter.
Yeah, no matter what. If you got guys on base, he's a different guy. Like everything, just obviously, because if you get on first base against Kenley,
you're going to steal second.
You're going to steal second, and then there's that whole thing of whether or not he just box you over to third because just for the strategy behind it, I don't know. But it's one of those things. I just don't trust it when he's out there right now. So it's difficult. I like that I haven't seen him much recently.
He just pitched, like you said, all the days. He was warming up last night.
Didn't come out, I don't believe.
Did he? No, he didn't. No, because he was warming up like in the ninth. It was pretty much over. Sunday, I can't remember if he appeared. He might have.
Well, it's Wednesday, and we haven't. Give him some more time. I just want to see him. And I think my thing has always been, and you can tell me how you feel about it. I've always wanted, at this point, with how he's been doing in those situations, I want him in the lowest leverage situation he can be in. Like, bring him out in the sixth inning and have with a 3-run lead. Like in that game yesterday when they were up 5-0, and after you took out Buehler, so that would have been the 7th inning or 8th inning. Yeah. I would have liked to see him there. 7-run lead. Let me see him there. Like, let me see him in a situation where he can't blow it. There's nothing that can really happen. I just want to see him get used to who he is again. Let him show his pitches. Actually throw to the strike zone. Use 94, but try and get some movement on it. I don't know. That's what I want to see.
That's fair. I think some of it's a bit of a fine line with the Dodgers and Kenley, because I have a suspicion that there's some mental aspect at play. You've been, Kershaw kind of went through it, where you've been so good with kind of one pitch or a couple pitches in Kershaw's case, and now you're kind of starting to decline just because, age sets, it's not a knock on Kershaw or Kenley or any other player that comes, just age kind of sets in, and you
eventually,
you peak, your athletic peak, you pass it. So I don't know if going to Kenley in the 6th inning long term would pay off.
Right.
I think it may upset him, and again, this is speculation on my part, it may upset him mentally or further impact him. Now, if he comes in the 8th inning like you last night, that probably would have been a good time. It's still the 8th inning. You could still help them win a game. Yep. That probably would have been fair.
Yeah, that's just what we want to see. And I think, everybody trusts the front office so much, and we want everybody to succeed and be in the right positions. And they trust Kenley Jansen despite the fact that he's been, average at best for the last couple of years. Things being all weird. It's just, I don't know. I feel like we overanalyze so much when it comes to this, and we just say, okay, whatever you want to do, Andrew Friedman. But sometimes you look and you go, what are you doing? This is just a ridiculous decision. But they got the reasons behind everything. Mr. Carlos, I'm guessing MSTR CRLS says, what's the record for days after clinching? Probably not the best.
No, it's actually...
Oh, you know it. Good.
If you include, obviously, Game 163, which then sent them into the postseason. Right. So including that, with tonight, they are 2-5.
2-5
during the 7-year run, obviously.
Right. Oh well, that's really interesting. I didn't even know that. That's a great stat. But yeah, look, you get excited, you finally get through that point, and then all of a sudden you take a step back. I just think it's just against this team, against the Baltimore Orioles, in Baltimore, where Camden Yards, where balls fly off of bats. The Yankees hit 1,000 home runs. It seemed like. Gleyber Torres hit 20 home runs in Camden Yards this year. To see these guys not hitting the ball out, Corey Seager did, and that was great to see. A.J. Pollock did, and Gavin Lux got his first. But I touched on it just now and thought about it. Corey Seager, how important is it to have this guy back this year?
I think it's huge. And as great as Manny Machado was last year, you lost something with Seager. Machado, I think, definitely he has all the talent in the world, but I think there was a consistency, especially when Seager is in his rhythm and healthy and not in and out of the lineup because of hamstring or back or whatever the case may be.
Right.
There's a consistency to him that I don't think Machado brought last year, and you missed that. And Seager has proven to hit left and right-handed pitching, so it doesn't matter. It's not somebody you need to really worry about platooning. So if he continues trending in this direction, I think that'll be huge.
Yeah, I think so. With Corey Seager, I remember last year I was doing these during the postseason. At the beginning of it, I would always go and put pitcher versus Dodgers. So it'd be like Fultonevich versus Dodgers, or whoever it happened to be that they were facing that day. And every time, without fail, it seemed like I would go through, all right, these guys got some decent hits against them. Corey Seager always bat 400 against them, it seemed like. It seemed like he hit all these major pitchers so well with 3 home runs and 5 RBIs. And, he just had giant numbers against these big pitchers. And to have him back, I think it's just a huge, huge boon for this team because he does so much for him. I think what's weird is that he's a guy that doesn't go by the Dodger mold. And I don't know if that throws off pitchers or whatever it is. He swings at the first pitch, and it's not what this Dodger team does at all. And that's one of my favorite things about it is that they go so deep into counts and they get pitch counts up, and he's so opposite. I don't know. It's having him back seems to me to be the biggest deal out of everybody that they have on this team.
For me, it'd be a toss-up between Seager and Bellinger, kind of reverting back to being able to hit left-handed pitching.
Right.
Because last year, platooning him was just having to platoon him was just brutal last year, and into obviously the World Series and all that. But yeah, I mean those two guys kind of performing at the levels you expect is a game changer.
Right. I mean, going back to the World Series, which obviously is so much fun to do. Bellinger and Muncy both didn't start the first 2 games of the series because they couldn't hit lefties. You're not going to see that this year. No. I think that changes and I think, I don't remember, you might know it better, but there was a stat that I saw on Sportsnet LA that was Cody Bellinger has 12 home runs against left-handed pitching, which is tied for first in all of baseball.
It might be more than 12. It might be closer to 13 or 14. Whatever number it is, it is tied. It's either first or second.
In all of baseball against left-handed pitching. Right. So that just shows what he's done. What have you seen from him that has changed this year? Because he was hitting lefties in his rookie year. So have you seen a difference in him?
So his stance now looks closer to his rookie year.
Right. More up, standing up straight.
Right, and his bat positioning and all that.
Right.
So between that, I think last year he was just tinkering, and really it kind of boils down to confidence and approach and chasing pitches and kind of staying in the zone. I mean, it sounds simple.
Right.
It's not. But
no, it's not.
When he can do that, someone of his talent, you get these results that you've seen this year.
Right. So I think we talked about it a little bit, but we'll go back to it anyway. Gavin Lux and Matt Beatty are the 2 that are kind of right on the cusp of making it to. And I think we did it off the air, actually, anyway. Yep. So we'll do it again now. When it comes to the position players, 13 guys. Is that what we're looking at? 13? Yeah. So 13 guys. Do Gavin Lux and Matt Beatty make the roster no matter what at this point?
Not no matter what. It is, to me, they both will be on if Alex Verdugo is not able to come back this year, which I don't think he is, right. Not with this latest setback. So operating under that kind of pretense, I think Lux and Beatty both make it.
All right, so because who else could possibly make it at this? If you have your 13 guy roster, which would make sense because you don't want to go into the bullpen too much. But to add a 13th pitcher at this point, especially in the NLDS when you only have a 5-game series. And you can use Rich Hill out of the bullpen, or you can use Stripling or Urias or Maeda or whoever you want. So, I mean, we counted it out for the pitchers, so let's count it out for the hitters. We have Pollock, Peterson, Taylor, Hernandez, Bellinger, Freeze, Lux, Hernandez, Seager.
No, you said Hernandez twice.
I did say, all right, so I'll take that back down to 8. Turner, Smith, Martin.
And Beatty.
And that's 12. So there's still one more. So do you put, I must have missed one, but. Oh, Muncy. I didn't say Muncy because he wasn't on here. Yeah, Muncy. Yeah. So that would have been 13. But so that means that a guy like Jed Jerko, who is
I don't think he really was ever going to make it anyway.
Nah, he's terrible. He's terrible. Christopher Negron.
He's same thing. He filled a need at the time, and he's great now to kind of get them through the end of the season. But he's not barring anything crazy.
All right. So Gavin Lux. Let's say Gavin Lux. He had a good night last night. He didn't do anything. He had one at bat tonight. I don't think he did anything. He might have gotten on base. I don't remember what happened exactly. But let's say, for argument's sake, he just completely falls apart. Is there someone else that can even fit that role now?
Yeah, position player wise, not. I mean, I guess maybe Negron, just because he gives you a ton of versatility. He's got enough speed that he could be a pinch runner for you.
Right,
but nobody else really. I guess potentially Edwin Rios.
Yeah,
he is back up with the team.
Yeah, he is because
Kyle Garlick is I think at the Stay Hot camp that Rios is at.
Right.
So maybe him.
What about Austin Barnes? Would you carry 3 catchers? He can play second base too.
I wondered about that. Maybe that's what
he had a double. He had a double tonight, and he had a double a couple of times.
That could be what they end up doing. I personally, at that point, I would probably just go Rios, just because I think he brings at least a little bit more pop.
Right.
But Barnes would also be a right-handed batter to kind of balance out. You do have a ton of lefties. I mean, Beatty, Jock, obviously Bellinger, Muncy.
Yeah, it's very lefty heavy, but you got. Turner is right-handed. So, but yeah. So then we have. The outfield is kind of much set here. You were making a great point earlier before we came on, and it was about how the idea that why Gavin Lux is even on this roster and how when they actually knew about it. Right.
So there was talk kind of early August, middle of August. Dave Roberts said, Lux is on our radar, which obviously, he was tearing the cover off the ball at AAA.
Right, yeah, it was insane what he was doing.
But they hadn't committed to calling him up for the purpose of playing him. A lot of the talk centered around he was just going to be around the team and, do this apprenticeship that Dave Roberts liked to float out there, which is what they did with Will Smith last September.
Yeah.
Then, right around that same time, the Dodgers Roberts said they were going to commit to playing Bellinger out in center field more frequently. So to me, what that meant was they were creating an opportunity for Muncy to slide over to first base on a regular basis. Obviously, he can start. It's not platooning anymore.
Right.
To me, that kind of reading the tea leaves, it's setting wheels in motion. Like, okay, they're going to give serious consideration to calling up Lux, playing him at second base, and letting him kind of play his way onto the postseason roster. And I think that's what we've seen unfolding.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the best thing to do. It's crazy what this team is doing, where they're going with such young guys in big positions. Like Will Smith is your starting catcher, and he's a rookie, and he came up in the middle of the season, and he's holding a pitching staff. His numbers have started to drop a little bit because there was no way he was going to keep up that pace, just like Bellinger wasn't going to keep up that pace. But I think Gavin Lux is in a position where he can do that. This is his first month. He can be that hot guy going into the playoffs, and they don't really know too much about him.
Right.
So hopefully that's what we kind of see more of as it starts going. I was going to ask you about the rotation and what is the rotation? How do you feel about it? Do you like if we're going to the playoffs, because that's all that really matters right now? It's clinched, blah blah blah. It doesn't matter. I don't really care about what happens against the Mets, over the weekend. Who cares? What does your starting rotation in the playoff look like?
Well, up until the past 2 weeks, I assumed Ryu was going to be the Game 1 starter again, which would make sense. They already kind of went that way, did the dramatic change of, Kershaw's not the Game 1 starter last year, and Ryu was putting together a remarkable season, historic season this year. So he'd kind of separate himself as the Game 1 starter. Hearing you and Sedano talk, I think Buehler going Game 1, that was I hadn't thought about it that way, where you align Kershaw for Game 3.
Okay.
That's an interesting strategy. And honestly, I think I could be convinced of that, because I think of those three, Buehler and Ryu hinge on pitching at Dodger Stadium a little bit more than Kershaw does. So
you would go Buehler at this moment. If it all started right now, you'd go Buehler, Ryu, Kershaw.
I think so.
Yeah, with me. That's totally what I think too. And I think the issue that we were talking about with Sedano, which that you guys may not have heard, was that I want Clayton Kershaw starting Game 3, basically no matter what at this point, if it's on the road. Unless something happens with Atlanta, which would be a disaster. But I want him starting Game 3. You're starting all over when you start Game 3, because that changes the entire series. If the home team in Game 3 wins, and then they win Game 2 or Game 4, then it's tied up 2-2, and it's all just a crapshoot after that. Yeah. So I want Kershaw, his splits are basically even. He's been around long enough that he understands who is pitching at home and away doesn't really change who he is. So I want him in that game 3. It also takes away the pressure of being like, oh, I'm the game 1 starter. Even though if he needs that, you can just think about it as like, okay, I'm the game 1 starter on the road. Fine. But you're right. Buehler and Ryu, just their splits are so much different away and home. So I think that those are the types of guys that need to be in there, and I agree. And hopefully, what do you think? Do you think Ryu, with now that he's skipped a spot in his rotation, and he had a bullpen, what do you expect from him now?
I honestly don't know what to expect from him at this point, because I was optimistic. I thought, okay, after he was on the injured list and they kind of gave him his break then, that he'd come back. He had the one good start, and I thought, okay, like he's going to be back to kind of what you expect. And then he struggled again. I'm of the belief that there is some fatigue involved. And not that I would fault him. It's his most innings pitched since his rookie year in 2013. Right. On top of that, he also, during the All-Star break in years past, he got to take that time off.
Right.
He started in the All-Star game. There's media responsibilities, promotional stuff that you also have to do. So I think there could be a little bit of fatigue with him. It wouldn't shock me if maybe they continue to try to give him extra rest to close out the season. Of course, caveat to that is you have to kind of map out what their plans for the postseason would be, because everybody has to be lined up. The good news is I don't know how much emphasis the Dodgers are putting on the best record in the NL, the best record overall. I think they're going to focus on putting themselves in the best position. Their pitchers, if Kershaw needs an extra day of rest, but it means he can't start until Game 3,
right?
I think they'll do it. Same thing with Ryu. If they decide they want him to start a Game 2 or a 3, they'll manipulate his schedule however they see fit.
Right, and I think that's what's the craziest thing about them is that no matter what, they're always going to make what they think is the right decision to succeed. And so when you have this pitching staff where they are, you freeze up so many different things. And like if you need Rich Hill, we talked about it before, but Rich Hill out of the bullpen, he can give you as many innings as you really need there.
And that's kind of the role I was skeptical that he was going to make it back and be built up to be a starter come October.
Yeah.
I didn't think he'd be back this early.
Okay.
He is. So early on, I kind of thought, well, if Rich Hill, go with one of your rookies, either Gonsolin or May, they seem to kind of cap out at about 4 or 5 innings. But if you get 4 clean innings in a Game 4 start from them,
right,
you can bring in Rich Hill for another 2 or 3, and then you bridge the game together after that. You're in a strong position.
Right, yeah.
Of course, things don't always go as planned. Things could happen, but they seem committed to Rich Hill for a game as their Game 4 guy. Which, if he's healthy and he can get there, great. Like it's not for a lack of trust in him. I just thought with his injury and how the calendar was going that there wasn't going to be enough time.
Yeah, I mean, Rich Hill in the playoffs has been the best Dodgers pitcher over the last couple of years. I think he's won every game that he was in line for the win when he left every single time, especially in the World Series. He had it in line in Game 2 in 2017, and then he beat Verlander in Game 4, 5, 6. I think Game 6, he beat Verlander, and then he won his game, or he was in line to win Game 4, which was just the worst. That was when they pulled him after giving up only 1 hit. And I understand what happened where, he apparently Dave Roberts went out there just to talk to him and he just handed over the ball, and what are you supposed to do at that point? I get it. But why even go out? Don't even go out there, first of all. And because he did, I lost my mind on this afterwards. I did the Blue review, but it was for Dodgers Nation at the time, and I lost it. Just went on a 10-minute rant screaming about Dave Robertson. What the hell are you doing taking him out when he was pitching so well? And he was like around 80 pitches, too. Yeah. It was such a dominating performance. That would have tied up the series.
Yeah.
2-2. I don't want to go back.
We can move on.
Yeah, we can move on. Can we? Is it time to move on? Anyway, but with that, we were talking about Rich Hill as a bullpen guy, and so many people are worried about the bullpen so much that there's no roles, there's no set roles that I've seen from this team now. Like there's no 8th inning guy, there's no 9th inning, or there is a 9th inning guy. There's no 8th inning guy, no 7th inning guy. They go with starters. Have you ever seen anything like that? Did they do that because they saw it from the Red Sox last year?
I think maybe some of it might be they saw the Red Sox beat them with that strategy. The flip side is it's the hand they were dealt. If they had traded for Felipe Vasquez, which maybe the Pirates might be regretting at this point.
They should be regretting it at this point.
You might see a little bit more clarity at the back end of the bullpen. I mean, well, maybe not, because maybe he bumps Kenley out of the ninth inning role. So who knows? But if you had kind of elite relief pitchers, two or three of them, you might see, okay, this is our seventh inning guy, this is our eighth inning guy, or this, however it might shake out.
Right.
I think really but also over the last couple years, they kind of have been trending in this direction. This has been the most aggressive, at least on the pitching side, with their starters. Usually Ross Stripling's kind of the only swingman.
Right.
We've seen May start pitching relief. We see Gonsolin start pitching relief. We see Urias start pitching relief.
Yeah.
So,
now Hill can do it, and now you got Gonsolin and May and Maeda and Stripling and Urias, and all these guys are now doing all of that. I mean, technically he hasn't been that way in a while, but Joe Kelly was a starter at one point in his career. So it's just I feel more at ease knowing that I can have some of these guys that are starters and coming in and just throwing gas for 2-3 innings. Go ahead.
Maeda's been very good out of the bullpen in October. So as much as you look at the bullpen and kind of evaluate them over the season, there's no kind of factoring. You need to factor in Maeda and keep that in mind, that he's an option now in the seventh inning when maybe it was Yimi Garcia who gave up a home run.
Right. Yimi Garcia. I wanted him off the team since the beginning of the year. But
I'm surprised that he's made it through. I thought for sure, just the way the Dodgers churned their roster, that he's out of options.
Right.
That he'd get DFA'd at some point. But
they just kept him around and let him give up 3-run home run after 3-run home run. Whatever. El Grandes Ligas on Instagram says, as of now, the Dodgers don't have me convinced they will win the World Series unless they get it together in the next few weeks. And I think that's something that we talked about on Sedano's show but that you guys might not have heard. How you play in September doesn't usually translate to how you play in October.
Right. And really, you don't need to look any further than 2017. I mean, I know it's 2 years and it could be considered a long time for some, but they lost 16-17.
11 in a row.
They were getting beat pretty much every time they played the Diamondbacks.
Yeah.
The postseason started, and what happened? They swept. I mean, it was really no competition.
Right.
So, in a perfect world, do you want to be playing your best baseball? Yes. I would argue that the Dodgers could play 500 going into the final week of the season, win 4 of their last 6 or 5 of their last 6, and I would feel like, okay, they've kind of turned it around and they could keep going. As much as Dave Robertson has implemented the culture of staying locked in on a day-to-day basis, which I think the team does, it's still difficult to really stay that, like, postseason mentality. Like, there is a little bit of a change, and I think these players have gone through it now, and they know.
I think most of the guys on this team have all been there for the last, 3 years and have seen all of this and played in World Series, and they understand what it's like to do that. There are guys that have not. Will Smith, Gavin Lux, Beatty, guys like that, Gonsolin, May, all the young guys.
But at least so far in the quote-unquote big moments they've played during the regular season, they've come. I mean, look at the walk-off home runs.
Oh, yeah.
The big hits. So they haven't exactly scared off, which is encouraging.
No, yeah. I never feel like they're out of it. And even today, we were watching the end of the game against the Orioles, and we were sitting there saying, like, if there was ever a team that could come back and do this Dodger team would have been one of those teams. I got Taylor Spencer 4414 say, do you think we can get the best record? I have my opinion. I wonder what you think.
I don't think so. Not unless something unforeseen and unexpected happens with one of the Yankees or the Astros. I think they'll, because now with tonight's loss, the Yankees were off. They're going to play doubleheader tomorrow, but I think now the Dodgers are back to a game and a half.
Yeah,
which is still close. I mean, you're definitely right there with them, but I don't see it.
Do you think they hold off the Braves?
I think they do.
It's getting a little.
It's gotten a little close. The Braves. I mean, they went on like a 9-game winning streak, I think, just out of nowhere, and so between that and the Dodgers playing 500, it just closed the gap all of a sudden. But will Atlanta keep up that pace? I don't know.
I mean, that's tough to do. And even if they do, are they going to be? How are they going to be once they get into the postseason too?
Right,
because you put out everything to get there.
And keep in mind the Dodgers have the tiebreaker with the Braves too.
Yeah,
so
they had I think that was important early on in the year. They were beating teams early on in the year that was going to be important here. Like they took the Milwaukee series right off the bat. Basically, they took the Braves series pretty early on because they swept early the Nationals. All the teams that were going to be a team that was going to be difficult, they took the series from, which I thought was gigantic for them. Let's see. Home field advantage is important. We've talked about that. You don't believe so. I believe home field advantage is important for this specific team.
I think this team, more than perhaps any other the last 2 years, is better equipped to win a World Series game in an American League ballpark because of all their hitters. You have more hitters than you have spots in the lineup. If this was last year, I mean, we saw what happened. They couldn't find a designated hitter to save their life. I mean, everybody stopped hitting. The bats went cold for the most part.
Oh, God, everybody went cold.
But this year, I think, is a little bit of a story.
I think, yeah, it's a different story. And even if someone does go cold, there's other guys that are all of a sudden hot again. Like Jock Peterson went on a tear. A.J. Pollock is on a tear right now. Seager is playing like Seager again. Justin Turner was actually playing really well until he got hurt again.
Yeah, his 10 home runs in August were a career high for most in any calendar month.
He had 27 home runs for him ties his career high, right?
It's tied.
Yeah, tied. So I mean, you thought that if by the end of the year that he would be. So who of the stuff of the position players do you need to see hot going into the postseason? Most importantly, whether it's, let's take out Bellinger and Seager.
Okay, and I think probably Turner. He's their right hand. He's kind of the balance to their lineup. He's the big right-handed bat, and he, like you were kind of talking about earlier, the team collectively really works counts. But he kind of epitomizes that, and he's someone who Dave Roberts has raved about on multiple occasions. Calling him the glue of the lineup, and just the guy who kind of sets the tone with his professional at bats every time up.
Right.
So if he's right and healthy and hitting well, it just changes everything because you can't pitch around them.
All right, so you're at the games all the time. This is something that drives me nuts. Justin Turner, either he's getting called on that outside strike all the time, or he's complaining about the outside strike all the time, and it's actually hitting inside the thing. Like, what is it about that outside strike with him? And is it the umpires? Is it him? Like, what's happening there?
I think it's a little bit of both.
He complains so
much.
A
couple, I think, of the borderline pitches have been strikes, and he'll be the first to admit it. Like, I went back and looked at it, and yeah, that was a strike.
Right.
In terms of what happened in San Diego, kind of his last big blow-up, what he said and what really frustrated him was the umpire told him it was right down the middle, which it wasn't.
Right.
It may have been a strike, but it was not right down the middle.
That was not down the middle, yeah.
So that kind of set him off with that and led to their...
What's going on with that? Are they actually... I mean, is he just going to... It's going to same things happen where next year all of a sudden they're like, nope, it's upheld.
No, he just... he won his appeal.
Oh, he won his appeal. Oh, I didn't even see that. Yeah. So, no, thank you. So he won... Of course he did, because it was a garbage call. Yeah. It was stupid to even... He didn't do anything.
No.
Like, the guy bumped into him. It was just a... It's one of those situations where if you know... I can't think of it right now, but at the time I did know it. If you know the name of the umpire, they're doing it wrong.
Rob Drake.
Yeah, Rob Drake. Yeah. If you know the name of the umpire... That's a problem.
Angel Hernandez.
Well, yes, Angel Hernandez. You only think of Angel Hernandez as screwing up every single call. All right, so are you one of the I like the umpire guy, or do you want robot umps?
No, I would keep the human umpires.
You don't want robot umps?
No.
Oh, see, I need them.
No.
It drives me crazy that it changes. The strike zone changes from umpire to umpire. You're getting calls. One time it'll be an outside strike, and the exact same pitch, he'll call it a ball.
So I think strike zones change game to game. Every umpire has their own strike zone.
Right, which is crazy.
For the most part, it will be at least semi-consistent. It might be bad. It might be a high pitch that is a ball, but it's getting called for a strike that night.
Right, and everybody gets that.
And if everybody gets that, I think you kind of live with it. So
sure,
I would try, and I don't know how much. It's one of the MLB's best kept secrets is kind of punishment and disciplinary action for umpires for having a bad game. If assuming that they're a little light-handed with that stuff, I think the first step before going to robot umpires would be, hey, like, you're suspended or whatever the case may be until you kind of improve your strike zone, I guess, if it's possible.
All right. Well, okay, I understand what you're saying, but why is Angel Hernandez still calling games? Why is, as Ryan DeMontes mentions, Joe West? Why is Cowboy Joe West calling games still? Why are these guys who are consistently terrible at their jobs still calling games? And then they're calling games in the postseason too.
Yeah, I mean, that goes, I think, to just kind of the union and MLB. Again, I don't know what punishment there kind of is for missed calls.
I just think that in every sport there is something that you need to hit at, right? In basketball, you need to get within the hoop every hoop is the same. Soccer, every goal is the same. In baseball, every strike zone should be the same. Goal in hockey, the goal, everything is the same. Everything in every sport, there is something that you have to get to that is always the same.
I think the issue with the strike zone is it's dependent on the player, the batter.
Right.
Because you could say the strike zone is from the chest to the knees,
Right.
but then it's going to move. It's technically going to move batter to batter.
Sure. Well, that's what the electronic strike zone is supposed to do. It's supposed to move according to your height. I mean, there's a little bit of, I don't know how much of it is real. It's just maybe in my own head, but when a guy has more of a crouch stance, and then when he comes up, the strike zone changes. Then that also takes away things like a catcher with their, because the catcher and their ability to bring the ball up.
Right.
But that's important. That's how guys keep jobs. Yeah. So that would take that away from them. I just think that if you have especially like, let's look at this Dodgers team for itself. They understand the strike zone better than any Dodger team I've ever seen. They know what a strike is and what a strike isn't, and which pitch to lay off of and which pitch to swing at. And if you're being called on that inside strike in this game, it totally changes their entire game plan. So, I don't know. That's just my argument for robot umps. I know that was not one of the topics that we thought we were going to talk about, but I know you got your own thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'll ask you this.
Okay.
Robot umpires or stealing first base period?
Stealing first base? I hate stealing. I don't like stealing first base.
I'd go robot umpires first too.
Go ahead. Oh yeah. You do. Are you saying you like
if I had
first
like
base?
No. I think one of the two may come eventually.
Oh God.
So I would.
Base.
So I think I'd like robot umpires are the lesser two evils.
Okay.
For me.
All right. Well, how about this? The one we're just gonna go through random little baseball things, but like okay, 12th inning. They say, all right, game's going too long. We're going to put a runner on second base. Oh, thank you. Thank you for not being okay with that, because that's awful.
Yeah.
It is the stupidest idea of all time.
That changes the fundamental, like,
it's like
the integrity.
Taking away like you're starting with two strikes.
Right.
Like, what are you doing? No, I don't. This isn't Little League. Get out of here. So no, I'm not a fan of any of those. All right, it looks like we just have a couple minutes left here, but before I get into a couple more things that you guys want to talk about, someone talking about Donald Sprinkles is back, who is a crazy person. He was saying some nutty things last year. I don't remember what he said. Maybe Donald Sprinkles is also Sean Anthologon, but Donald Sprinkles was nuts in here when he was here last year. That's why I only remember that name. But I do want to get into a little bit about Bleed Los, which is this hat, this Los Angeles Sangre Azul hat, and also this, which I have to lift up my shirt again, but it's the Walker Buehler's Day On shirt. I have a bunch of these shirts from Bleed Los. It's at Bleed Los, BLEEDLOS. They do make amazing shirts, amazing hats. This is one of the more comfortable hats that I own. Snapback. I have a bunch of them. I have a Los Angeles Sangre Azul, and I also have a Bleeds Blue one. I have a Los Angeles vs. the World hat. I wear these shirts all the time. It's around the house, out, doesn't matter. Most comfortable shirts I've ever worn. Go to Bleed Los on Instagram or on Twitter and order some shirts. If you put in Blue Review when you check out, you'll get 15% off the entire store. Not just one item, the entire store. So go in there, put Blue Review in there, and make sure to get something from Bleed Los. It's almost time. It's postseason time. Get your Dodger stuff, and they make great shirts. I have a butane shirt that I just got, and it was dirty because I wore it to Disneyland on Sunday instead of bringing it here, which was dumb. I should have worn it here, but whatever. That's all about that. All right, we only have a couple minutes left, but I'm going to go through and answer just a couple more questions. I see here Ryan D. Montez asking about thoughts on Yelich. What do you think for Yelich and for the MVP race now?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. He may have started to create some separation with Bellinger, maybe past him.
Right.
It wouldn't have shocked me if Yelich ended up winning it.
No, not me either.
Now, though, I don't know if he created enough separation to hold off whatever Bellinger might do for the final weeks. But, I mean, it's obviously an unfortunate injury.
Is there anybody else besides Bellinger that's somebody that could overpass Bellinger?
I mean, I guess if the Braves end up overtaking the Dodgers for the best record in the NL, then you have to start looking there. Probably Acuna
has been really good. Josh Donaldson has been really good down the stretch. Yeah. I think Bellinger's got it pretty much locked up at this point.
Probably.
Yeah, just because with the numbers he has. I was actually just looking at it today that Bellinger has something like an 8.3 WAR or something like that, which is the best in all of baseball, and that's wins above replacement, and that's a huge deal. The fact that Yelich was somewhere in the sevens, low sevens, and Mike Trout, he's above Mike Trout, who is by far the best player in baseball.
And I think it's just a testament to Bellinger's versatility. You put him at first base, right field, center field.
Right.
He could win a Gold Glove at all three.
Yeah, where do you prefer him?
I have always liked him in center field.
Yeah.
I think just his athleticism and his ability to kind of get to balls in the gap really changes everything.
His arm strength.
Right field, I think, would be second for me just because his arm strength. And then, first base, it's not a knock on him playing first base. It's just, I think there's too much value in the outfield.
Yeah, totally agree. El Dodger says Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso has been great with the power, but he's got a really low batting average, and he doesn't, and they're not going to make the playoffs. So, taking the best player on the best team usually is the way to go in these situations, especially when they're that much better than everybody else.
Right.
So, all right, we just got about a minute left here. Let me see if I got any more questions from the Periscope, and we'll see if we got someone talking about the Raiders. Are you a Raider fan?
No.
Oh, see, I am. Don't talk badly about my 16-0 Raiders that are about to happen here. Ryan DeMonte says Bellinger had 22 first place votes, and Yelich had 11 first place votes, according to an MLB article a few days ago. So, it's right there. Most likely, it's going to be. Yeah. Matthew Moreno, thank you very, very much for being here with me on the Blue Review. We've been trying to do this for quite some time, but we finally found a way to do it. So maybe we can get you on an away game for during the postseason. Yeah. We'll try and do this all over again. So thank you very much for being with us. And thank you guys for being here on the Blue Review. I am Greg Bergman at BergmanGreg on Instagram and on Twitter, and I'm happy to talk to everybody, especially about Dodger baseball. And Matthew Moreno is mmoreno1015 on Twitter, and he is from Dodger Blue. Go check out Dodger Blue. I think they're the biggest site.
Yeah, we've been the most read for the past few months now. So we're growing.
There you go. Keep going to Dodger Blue. Thank you guys very much for being here. I appreciate it. We'll be back next Wednesday. I'm out of here. See you.